whole concept of Global Accessibility Awareness Day is for that single day to think about, to learn about, and to experience digital accessibility.
Jonathan Hassell interviews Jennison Asuncion on Global Accessibility Awareness Day.
Well, hi. Today I have Jennison Asuncion with me. Hi, Jennison. How you doing?
Hey, good morning, Jonathan.
So he's a Canadian that almost everyone in the accessibility community knows, probably because he actually runs most of the accessibility communities out there. Jennison, I wanted to start with that. Start with your evangelism work. What makes you so passionate about web accessibility?
I think what makes me passionate about, I'll expand web accessibility to what I call digital accessibility, to include the mobile world as well, and whatever else is coming down the pipe, is because I, first of all, have been a direct beneficiary of what happens when stuff is accessible, and so I trace my success to having access to accessible learning, accessible work, etc., etc. So I feel really lucky that I've had that, and so it's my opportunity, as much as it might sound a little hokey, but it's my opportunity to give back, because I have had that really good opportunities myself. And there's so many interesting things to get done, which is what also motivates me. There's all this new technology that's coming out, and just figuring out a way to get people to think about accessibility and to talk about it. To me, if my approach, if people are comfortable coming to me to ask questions, then that means that I'm able to help open up that conversation and get them more informed. Sure. And so if I can play my small part in doing that, in making accessibility, quote-unquote, accessible to the mainstream, primarily to the mainstream designer developer, then that's great. And I'll use that talent, and whatever you want to call it, hopefully to help move things forward.
Sure. And one of the ways you do that is organising the Global Accessibility Awareness Day every year. What inspired you to do that?
Well, what inspired me to run with Global Accessibility Awareness Day, and we started that, it's May 9th every year, we started that last year, is Joe Devon, who was the guy behind the whole thinking of doing something like this. So back in November, December of 2011, I was home on a Saturday evening, which is a rarity for me, but I happened to be home and caught a tweet from someone I didn't know at the time, Joe Devon. Who was a back-end developer in Los Angeles, and he just tweeted about a blog post he wrote about how important it was for developers to understand accessibility. And because of some of the other stuff I've been doing before then with the accessibility camps and stuff like that, I said, this is an interesting article, let me read it. And so I clicked on the link, or activated the link, and read the blog post, and it was all about how he, who didn't have a disability, who was just a mainstream developer, felt it was very important for developers to appreciate and to understand accessibility, and that it would be neat to have one day in a year where the focus would just be on accessibility. So when I saw that, of course, all these lights kind of turned on in my head because of the accessibility camp movement that I had been involved with, and the same thing, helping evangelize accessibility. And I was like, this is interesting and great, because I've been thinking about wanting to do a day-long kind of focused international day where we could do something like this. So it was almost like a gift in my lap. So I responded to his blog post and said to Joe, well, if you're interested in doing this, if I can give you a hand, let's do it. And then, long story short, fast forward to May 9th of last year, and we had events running in Mumbai, from Mumbai, India, to we had events in the UK, I had events all over Australia, and in the US and Canada. And we had some other events in Qatar, and virtual events held all over the place. And it was all through the power of social media, and through some great people who didn't think I was nuts to come to them only a couple of weeks ahead of the event, because Joe and I are both extremely busy people, and the date kind of crept up on us, but people just rose to the occasion. And the whole concept of Global Accessibility Awareness Day is for that single day to think about, to learn about, and to experience digital accessibility. So globalaccessibilityawarenessday.org, I'll put the plug in there for that.
Please do.
Depending on when people are watching this video. You can certainly check that out, and depending on when in the year it is, we definitely encourage people to get involved. And what we're doing for this year, because we're planning a little bit better, is we're actually going to be translating some of the original blog posts. We're going to translate that into a couple of other languages, because English is not the only language of the world. So we want to get that out in different languages and get people doing the same thing in multiple tongues. And again, for me, it's just getting the word out, because there's an impression out there amongst some that everybody who's in IT already understands what accessibility is. That's not the case, and I know that. So this is a way to do it in a non-threatening way. Hopefully it will be fun, because we get people to do different activities. But it's just, like I said, raising the awareness, opening the conversation, getting communities talking and getting people together. And if I could take the benefit of talking about a foundation that's going to be starting up fairly soon. The God Foundation is actually going to be a living tribute to Charles Devon, who is Joe Devon's father. And actually Charles is the inspiration to Joe to wanting to understand a little bit about accessibility. So Joe's dad was obviously getting old, and he was starting to have trouble with his vision just because of onset age-related low vision, right? And so Joe was just trying to get the computer experience so his dad could better use the computer. And that was Joe's first experience with accessibility. Because in Joe's day-to-day life, he wasn't doing anything about accessibility. He was a back-end developer. So because of that connection, we thought it was a really nice tribute to Joe's father to kickstart the foundation, and as a tribute to him. So Joe and I, again, this is one of these stay tuned kind of things, but our plan is to use the foundation to help, again, to help fund opportunities for people to continue the conversation between the mainstream high-tech community and the digital accessibility community. So we're really excited about that.
Find out more at globalaccessibilityawarenessday.org. For more accessibility video case studies and information on the book that inspired them, email us on book@hasselinclusion.com.